get started here. Welcome to the April 5th, 2022 Plan Commission meeting for the City of Oshkosh. There are a few things that I would like to go over before we start the meeting. One, please make sure you turn off your cell phones and other technology. We would appreciate that not to occur while our meeting happens. Also, we will be having several public hearings tonight as part of our agenda. At the public hearing, we will ask the applicant the applicant will be invited to speak, and then members of the public will be allowed one turn to speak on each agenda item unless a Plan Commission member asks for clarifying comment or ask questions. So this is a one and done when you have a chance to speak during the public hearings. Having said that, we will now begin with roll call.
Mr. Kiefer?
Here.
Mr. Marshall?
Here.
Ms. Prop?
Here.
Ms. Shireman?
Here.
Mr. Bowen?
Here.
Mr. Coulibaly? Ms. Davy?
Here.
Councilmember Ford?
Here.
Vice Chair Mitchell?
Here.
Chairperson Perry?
Here.
9 present.
Thank you. We'll move on. We have a packed agenda tonight, so we'll move on with item number 1, specific implementation plan amendment, design standards variance for screening materials at 4200
Oberesny.
Yeah, that's it. Road. GRS LLC is the owner. Fox Valley Technical College is the applicant. Can we have the is there any site inspections? I'm sorry, any site inspections for this one by Plan Commission members? Seeing none, I will accept the staff report as part of the record. Please present your summary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Fox Valley Tech is requesting an SIP amendment to allow the use of 6-foot-tall slatted chain link fencing for refuse enclosure. The ordinance requires that the exteriors of enclosures shall be constructed of solid wood, one or more of the materials used on the exterior of the main building. The subject site is 7.3 acres in size, irregular shaped on the east side of Poberesny Avenue, approximately a half-mile south of West Ripple Avenue. The property is zoned institutional with a plan development overlay. The surrounding area, here's an air photo. This surrounding area is mostly agricultural in use, with the exception of the Veterans Museum to the south and Interstate 41 to the west. In June of 2010, the Common Council approved a plan development to allow construction of a vocational school, and that was shortly followed by a plan development amendment in November of 2010 to allow off-premise signage at the site to accommodate the primary sponsor of the facility. Back here. The site is developed with the approximately 26,000 square foot vocational school built in 2011. The school is for advanced manufacturing processing, consists of welding booths, computer classrooms, research and development centers, labs, and such. No changes are being proposed for the site design other than increasing the enclosed area for the refuse enclosures. Over at the southeast portion of the property, right here, there's an existing 20-foot by 20-foot enclosure screened with a 6-foot-tall wood fencing with swing gate. The school has been experiencing theft of recyclable materials. They have collection containers outside of the dumpster enclosure, and yeah, they have been experiencing theft. And the new proposed enclosure will increase the size of the enclosure area and securely house the metal recycling dumpsters, in addition to the existing trash dumpsters. As proposed, here's a schematic of the fencing. The proposed screening will consist of 6-foot-tall galvanized chain link fence with PVC slats, which will provide 95% opacity. Code requires normally in storage area a minimum of 90% opacity, so it is exceeding that requirement. The color of the slats will be complementary to the main building, and then access will be provided by a motorized, let's go here, a motorized gate that will, a 28-foot long rolling gate that will cantilever over existing grass area to the south. One of the main reasons for this request is due to the gate's large size. Using materials consistent with the main building will make the gate extremely heavy, making manual opening and closing very difficult should the motorized system fail. The applicant also states that the use of the slatted chain link will have negligible aesthetic impact on the surrounding area. The location of the closure is approximately 340 feet east of Poberezny Road and 430 feet from the northbound Interstate 41. The enclosure will be completely shielded from the by the north side of the school building and partially shielded from the Veterans Museum to the south. Staff is agreeable with this assessment, but to offset the base standard modification request, staff is recommending advanced landscaping in the form of arborvitae along the south of the building and the pavement edge along the south of the driveway access leading to the enclosure area. No plans are being proposed for site lighting or signage. As far as landscaping, a formal landscaping plan has not been submitted as part of this request. This is the site plan that was submitted. The applicant has agreed to implement landscaping as required per approval of this item by the Common Council. The applicant also stated that Fox Valley Tech landscape architect students will prepare a landscape plan based on the approved conditions. The existing landscaping, let me go back to the other photo. There is a mulched area with some shrubberies planted along the south edge of this drive access. And then over time, the plants have either died or are in very poor health due to snow removal and salt impact. So staff is recommending, based on code requirements, 51 yard area landscape points would be required per code. Staff is recommending 20 landscape points for every 10 linear feet along the southerly paved area, starting roughly from here, and then wrapping up as pretty much this yellow line. And that would equate to 500 points. And then in terms of number of arborvitae, that would equate to 16 arborvitae. This has been discussed with the applicant, and they are more than happy to provide that. After approval and during the site plan review process, the final landscape plan will be submitted and reviewed for compliance to ensure that conditions are met. No changes are being requested for stormwater management or other building facades. And staff is recommending approval of the amendment to the SIP with 3 conditions. One for the base standard modification to use the slated galvanized chain link with slatting for screening. A minimum of 500 landscape points in the form of arborvitae with a plan approved by Department of Community Development. And the previous conditions from the 2 original plan development approvals are still in full force and effect.
All right, thank you for your report. Plan Commission, are there any technical questions for the staff? All right, having seen no hands, at this point, I'd like to open the public comment, public hearing, and request a statement from the applicant to start, if that's possible. Is the applicant here?
Yeah, right here.
Would you like to make a statement? If you do, please go up to the podium and state your name and address for our record.
Yeah, my name is Lucas Carrig with Fox Valley Tech. Just want to concur that what Jeff stated is correct with why we're recommending it, and that we are in favor. As he mentioned, with our landscape students, we'll come up with a plan, and then our contractor down here that takes care of our yearly lawn care and maintenance of that site, we'll get some arborvitae planted up this year then right away.
Thank you. Are there any other individuals from the public that would wish to speak on this item? Any other individuals from the public that wish to speak on this item? All right, I'm going to close the public comment period. And the applicant, you can make a closing statement if you want, but I don't All right?
Can I ask a question?
And, yes, the commission now, it's up to you for discussion. Go
Can I
ahead.
ask a question?
Sure.
Or- Lucas, I was just curious if you could talk a little bit about that area between the two parking lots, between your building and then the museum. Do you know, is that a depression intended to like collect and then filter eventually stormwater, or?
The easterly portion does run.
Can you go, just so we can have it.
Yeah, I think it's the portion to the south, right? Right,
Yeah, that portion to the south there, kind of rounding the corner behind the existing dumpster enclosure is depressed there. But mainly between the two parking lots, that's actually where our holding tank is for the building. In that grass area, we got our couple holding tank covers there.
Got it.
You can see the two white holding tank covers.
Yeah, I wasn't sure from the map if they were, raised up. Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Okay, Plan Commission, looking for some action on this agenda item.
Make a
Motion to adopt the findings and recommendation as stated in the staff report.
Second.
I have a motion from Ms. Prop and a second from Mr. Mitchell. Plan Commission, any discussion on this motion? All right, having seen none, let's have a vote.
Mr. Kiefer,
Aye.
Mr. Marshall,
Aye.
Ms. Prop,
Aye.
Ms. Shireman.
Aye.
Mr. Bowen,
Aye.
Ms. Davy,
Aye.
Councilmember Ford,
Aye.
Vice Chair Mitchell.
Aye.
Chairperson Perry.
Aye.
Motion carried 9-0.
Thank you. Item number 2, approve land acquisition and determine necessity to acquire for Rural 2 Basin for Sawyer Creek Watershed, generally located at the west 2700 block of Clairville Road. Have there been any site inspections by the Plan Commission members? Any site inspections? Okay, having seen none, I will accept the staff report as part of the record. Let's have a summary of this item, please.
Thank you. The Department of Public Works is requesting the eventual purchasing or acquisition of approximately 59.13 acres of land currently located in the town of Algoma, just west of Clairville Road, and kind of situated about a quarter mile south of West 20th Avenue. The site is rather large. It's approximately, the bulk of it is approximately 1,320 feet wide and 2,000 feet deep, with a 60-foot wide by 630-foot deep strip connecting Clairville Road to the rest of the proposed acquisition. Actually, this is, I apologize, this is drawn wrong. Actually, it goes to the midway point here. So from this point over to the west is the proposed acquisition. Back in here, I'll go to a better map of that. Here's a better map showing the proposed acquisition. In 2015, the Common Council approved the official mapping of the subject site. The official mapping action was used to preserve this land from any inadvertent development that could occur. Pretty much reserves the land for any type of development until that time the city was able to budget and propose the acquisition. The city hired a consultant to prepare a regional stormwater management plan for the Sawyer Creek watershed, which is right there. Everything in blue is the Sawyer Creek watershed. The plan recommended the construction of large basins on the outskirts of the city to mitigate stormwater or downstream flooding from Sawyer Creek. The first of these basins was constructed in 2012, the James Road Basin, which is this black dashed area located right here. And the second basin that's being proposed is located right here with that red purplish outline. The second basin will assist in lowering the floodplain or FEMA floodplain elevations of Sawyer Creek and in various parts throughout the city. The engineering division is also in the stages of updating the citywide stormwater management plan. Construction of this basin will aid in the development of the plan and help determine future stormwater mitigation needs in the area. The area is zoned, our comprehensive plan does recommend this area for light-density residential. Staff's of the opinion that the residential land use recommendation is consistent with the comprehensive plan as residential developments, or this basin would be not unlike other infrastructure needed for residential developments, so staff is comfortable with the consistent with the comprehensive plan. And this action by the Plan Commission is the first step for the city to acquire this property. The city is required to follow this acquisition process as required by state law. So staff is in support of, or recommends approval of the property acquisition located at the 2700 block of Clairville Road as requested.
Okay, thank you for your report. Are there any technical questions from the Plan Commission members to the staff? Mr. Mitchell?
Thank you. You mentioned the comprehensive plan is in support of this, and I think elements of the comprehensive plan are as well. I don't have it in front of me, but I believe when I reviewed that, I didn't see any mention of the comprehensive plan's farmland preservation goals as well. I know I've mentioned this before on different projects, is that it would be, I think, beneficial and, I don't know, more informative to provide all of the applicable references in the comprehensive plan when an issue is being presented. Not that they all have to be equally valued, but what happens in a case like this is that we say, well, these 4 provisions in the comprehensive plan support this initiative, omitting maybe the 2 or 3 that have counter goals. This might very well make sense to do this here, but I think we're missing important information that should be presented when, if we mention the comprehensive plan, that parts of the comprehensive plan maybe say, the city also has a goal to maintain and preserve farmland preservation, and while this goes against that goal, here's the basis why and the rationale that we had in making that determination. I know this is just the first step, but I'm curious, is there, do we do like a tree inventory? Do we do any sort of analysis of the lost tree canopy that we might have when we do a project like this?
Yeah, so a couple of things. The comprehensive plan for the city does not specifically call out farmland preservation as a goal for the municipality. It does reference that the county level has some farmland preservation documents, but the city comprehensive plan does not specifically call out that as a goal of the city. So that's why we don't generally reference in these, because it doesn't, in our plan, specifically call out. Our comprehensive plan does talk about urban tree canopy and some of those things, which is a great reference to your second point. This early in the process, no, that is not taking place. This is the first statutorial step to give our public works and their consultant the ability to then reach out and start contacting and negotiating with property owners. So this is very early in that overall process.
Does it come back to us?
This would not. This is basically saying, yes, we're allowed. This is us recommending to council if whether or not Public Works and their consultant should be allowed to reach out and negotiate.
So I guess it gets to the question is if this moves forward with this acquisition, and I don't know what tree types are there, but let's just say that we remove 24 acres of quasi-wooded lot. Does the city have any policy or practice to replace some of the lost tree canopy, or to somehow mitigate the impacts of that through planting elsewhere?
It's something that would be continued to be discussed. We do allocate CIP dollars annually for the addition of new street trees and tree canopy in the city. So we actively do that on a yearly basis already. But with this being a large wooded area, that is something we could potentially look at as further spending dollars to offset some of this ask. I think that's reasonable for us to consider.
All right, Ms. Prop.
This doesn't relate exactly to this project, but it does in general. Does Public Works expect another basin, Basin 3 or Basin 4 in the Sawyer Creek area?
Defer that one to Justin.
So
Okay,
no, the plan that was developed just had these 2 row basins. This would be kind of the last implementation of the plan.
For Sawyer Creek?
For Sawyer Creek watershed, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, are there any additional questions from Plan Commission members to staff? Ms. Davy?
Justin, while you're still there, is this going to mitigate the flooding issues on 9th Avenue and that whole area that have been ongoing for like the last 50 years?
So this is one piece of the puzzle to help mitigate that flooding. This in overall storage volume for is actually larger than the James Road that was built back in 2012. You think you said?
I think so.
So as far as volume stored, it's going to be larger than what's there. Anything we're doing will help with that to help lower that flooding at that intersection.
Thank you.
Additional questions from the Plan Commission? Okay, having seen none, this is also open public comment and requesting a statement from the applicant. I see the applicant is the city. Justin, do you want to say anything additional, or?
Jeff did a great job.
All right. So we will open the public comment to other citizens that wish to speak. Are there any citizens that wish to speak on this particular agenda item? Yes, please step to the podium and give your name and address, please. Thank you.
Hello, Tyler Wagner. Property address is 2803 Clairville Road. It would be the adjacent property for the skinny piece. Okay, basically, I'm guessing we're going to come in off of Clairville Road. I own the 20 acres there with the house. I just would like to know, I guess, as a planning committee, what would this do to my property value in long term? And what would you guys do, I guess, around this piece of property to, I guess, I have a newborn in 5 years. I don't want her to go fall in a ditch and obviously drowned. And I guess, you, sir, for the James Road, I know Clairville or the whole Sawyer Creek floodplain has been an issue in the town. Well, they think it's gonna help it out here. But I want to know if there's any statistics or scientific stuff that you guys have figured out that actually helped with the first retention pond you guys built, that the water level is now lower in town. I guess if there's any scientific stuff that you guys have figured out since you've done that, if it's helped anything out in town. I don't know if you could touch on that. That's, I guess, all I have to say for that. So, thank you.
Thank you.
I guess for starters, to talk about the pond itself, so this, like James Road, is planned to be a dry detention basin that will fill up in larger storm events. So, majority of the year it will be relatively dry, and then once we do have the heavier rain events, it would fill up, and then within 24, 48 hours, it should come back down to being again, relatively dry, more of a marshy, wetland more than a full drainage pond. With respect to the questions about studies, we do have modeling that shows the reduction in the flood elevation inside the city. Everything that we've done through this watershed through the last 20 years has lowered the base flood elevation in the city on the orders of magnitude of roughly 10 inches. With this pond specifically, we don't have that figured out yet as we're working through the design, but I would anticipate another several inches reduction inside the city of the base flood elevation.
Okay, are there any other members of the public that wish to speak at this time? Yes, sir, please state your name and address for our record.
My name's Richard Clems. I live at 4635 County Road K. The question I have is the piece of paper I received shows that you're planning on buying that whole section. Well, my house is right there. Right in the middle of my understanding was that you were gonna buy everything south of the creek, and the creek was the borderline. Now, on there, it somewhat shows that, but on the piece of paper I have here, it doesn't. It shows that you're gonna buy up my house and everything else. Do you understand where I'm coming from?
We're trying to figure that
So
out.
where is your house?
See where it says can I come up there?
Make it easier on us.
Right. All right, where's the creek?
This would be I believe this, Justin.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's our.
Yeah, okay. Now, if you see on this piece of paper, there's the creek, and this is all checkered, like you're gonna buy
Yeah.
that.
this, if you go back there, I'll explain. So there's a difference in what our legal description is versus what our software allows us to make on those maps. The software that's used for those maps has to select full parcels. We can't cut it out, which is why you see the difference of this not being included. The actual legal descriptions, that is not being omitted. The software used to make those maps, it takes in full parcels. That's the difference there.
I have one more question. I've grown up on that creek since I was 4 years old. They really never had any problems until they started developing along the creek, back through behind Carl Traeger and all that. And a big problem is the dam at the West Haven Golf Course. That holds water back. And I don't know how, that is considered a navigable waterway. How they got away with that is beyond me. So that's
just
the
an
question I have. And
Yes, I am not aware of the golf course having a dam to dam up water. I know there are restrictions throughout the creek, but I think the city is trying to eliminate those as best we can as the projects we've done. The dredging, we've widened the bridges, overpasses to allow for water to convey more freely downstream. So I'm not aware of a dam that is built or considered a dam in the West Haven Golf Course.
it's an inverted culvert.
There's one culvert that, sort of speak out of turn, there's like one or two 24-inch culverts that every time it floods, the whole pond that they have there is a giant spillway, basically a spillway / dam, ponding up the water that is definitely backing it up. Believe me. The issue is farther downstream than, I mean, out here to ruin 40 good acres of farmable land and 20 acres, 25 acres of beautiful property of woods, and to ruin that to, I mean, maybe you could think about doing the, some stuff in town, maybe clean the creek out, or the golf course, maybe kind of take some ideas with that before we go and spend millions and millions of dollars of digging 40 plus feet of dirt out. I mean, I don't find that very cost effective for the city taxpayers to dig out that 40 acres of dirt and then the fuel to haul it, the people excavating it. Where's the dirt all gonna go? I mean, that's a lot of money that's gonna be spent from the city taxpayers to, we think it's gonna help the water level come down several inches.
Thank you for your additional comment. Are there other individuals that want to speak at this time? Any other individuals that want to speak publicly at this time on this agenda item?
Could I ask another question?
Not unless the committee asks of you. Is there any other? All right, Plan Commission.
I do have a question.
Okay, please state your name and address for the record.
My name's Brian Spanbauer. I reside at 2713 Clairville Road. It'd be the first property, the first residence, right there up on the south end of the 40 there, right there. So I've been here now for 21 years is when I built the house back in 2000. The biggest concern that I see that's having problems for the city down Sawyer Creek is if you look at my yard right there, you look at this ditch that they dug just last fall when they redid Clairville, but this has been an ongoing issue over here since they redid the east side of Clairville when they leveled the whole industrial park, okay? They added culverts across Clairville. If you come right back to the homes across the road just south of me, adjacent, there's the new road that comes there, the Compass Way. They added 2 culverts in there to take all the water that's coming from the east side of this industrial park, and they're shoving it over to our place on the west side of the Hill Farm, which, the Hill Farm, the city now owns that property. When they did the basin number 1, they took all the dirt from basin 1, they put it at the end of the Hill Farm, which is next to the end of my property. They raised that elevation, that land from Highway 91 to the center of that field at 80 acres. I don't know how many feet, but it's a lot. All that water now sheds to the north. So the city has created me quite of a challenge with my backyard in the last 15 years. With a lot of water coming through our backyard, tearing out our yard. I've got 3-foot trenches right now in there from this ditch from the last couple of years. I have tree roots. My underground fence is completely exposed. I fix it, it gets washed out. We used to get 1 inch or 2 of rain, and we'd have a river. You could work a canoe down this thing. This is really where a lot of this water is going, is through our backyards, mine and my neighbors, and it's flooding the north end, which used to be a farm field where you could farm where the trees are. Now it's, they consider it a wetland down there from all this water that we're taking on from the east side of Clairville. So my biggest concern with this, this for me, I'm looking like, hey, we're gonna finally do something with this water problem. We need to do something with this right here, either to redirect this to the ditch or put a big holding pond right there south of our 3 residents. Now, our new neighbor, Jamie, I don't know if he's here, but he just built his house 2 or 3 years ago. He's the 3rd residence on the end right there. He first started out his first year, he added 2 culverts in across his driveway because his driveway got washed right out completely in the center when we had like about 1 inch and 1.5 inches of rain. He couldn't even get out of his yard to get out to the road. So he had 2 culverts he added in gravel. So the next year, which was last year, it got washed out again. This time he added 2 more culverts. He has 4 culverts right now going across his driveway before it gets to the ditch and the road. That's how much water is coming through all 3 of our yards, which I never had that issue until the biggest problem has been since they redid the industrial park on the east side of Clairville, all right? You can see the trench going through there. Anybody that's driven out in Clairville right now, they can see the problems that we're having out there, and all that water from the east side of all that land is coming to the west. So that's where, if you were doing this pond, I was thinking to myself, if they were going to do this pond and they're going to do it back there, are they going to connect this to that, to hold that in there? Or how is that going to impact taking the water away? Because that right there is your big problem, I feel. I mean, with what's going on right now. There's nothing stopping it. But our yards, I built a wall around my holding tanks. I had to put 3-foot risers in because the water went in, filled up our holding tanks, and shot everything up through our basement. All right? We had a completely empty outer basement, completely get this house. And this house is built up on a hill, okay? I built this 20 years ago. 250 loads of fill that we had hauled in, halfway hauled in until the city stopped us at the day our builder had it all lined up. Stopped us because of this future project, or whatever future project. My builder had to get all new fill, and it came from 24th Street, down there between Oshkosh Truck and Doty, down by Artie and Ed's. Half of that road is in my yard to fill in around there. So when we got this thing built and we had all the dirt topped off in there and everything looked beautiful when it was done, got a lot of topsoil. My builder's like, you're never going to have a water problem in here because I built this beautiful home and I wanted to finish the basement off, all right? But we've had more water problems because of the ditch filling up with water, the culverts not being able to take the water that's coming down. So the water backs up, and it backs up against our foundation, down our window walls, and get a call from the kids that, call me at work and like, Dad, water's pouring in, in the spring when you have your melt off or whatever, and it's not a good feeling to have this happen repeatedly, okay? So last fall, when they're finishing off this road and this construction on Clairville, and they put this ditch right to my yard, and I'm like, what? No, this is the city that's done this. They own this property, all right? These are the planners that planned this. So what's the plan with the water all this extra water they created? I built the new garage 2 years ago. They knocked me down to a ridiculous square footage that I had to build, so I had to reconfigure everything, custom build it and order everything. And then when we finished the garage and the yard, I concreted the driveway to take care of some more, just to finish it off. I hauled in all this nice black dirt, got the whole thing done, and the next rainfall, everything washed out, and it went right down the ditch, and that's all my dirt in the ditch. I mean, I've asked the town of Algoma multiple times to dig that ditch out. Our drain line goes into that ditch, and it's all gravity fed, and it's a white pipe, goes right between kitchens and Jamie's place. But I'll tell you, this has been nothing but a pain, and you know what? This water, and so that ditch that they dug to my house, you all go out there and take a look at that. That's your problem. You're taking all that water from the east side, and you're shoving it over to the other side with all these huge culverts. These culverts that should be on the east side of Clairville to maybe go down or put a pond where they have that pond, drain them in. I don't understand why they never drained them into them ponds on the east side. You got all them big ponds over on the east side. None of that's going in there, at least. I mean, so my fix for this whole thing is on your city ground that you bought the hill farm, where that trench comes in, somewhere down in that corner south of my place. You build a big ass pond right there on that 80 acres. And do a basin up there, or where I mean, I'm just saying is that to do something, it needs an additional one like there also. Because that right there, there's a lot of water that comes through there. I don't know how many acres that is, 400 acres behind the Y, all right? My parents used to own the farm that the Y is on. My mom and dad sold the farm to the city. No, I'm sorry, to the YMCA. I think it was in 91 or I don't know, I think it was in the early 90s. They sold the YMCA to the city, 80 acres. And the 80 acres was supposed to be to have the YMCA and also to have all of the baseball diamonds, the football fields, and the soccer fields built in the back of that YMCA. 2 years after the Y was built, the Y turned around and sold the thing to the city, the back 40, to the city for this industrial park. Now, at the time, my kids were going through all the sports and everything, and we're in Oshkosh and the Oshkosh Youth Baseball, and we're trying to find a place for these kids to play baseball at a decent park or diamond in this place. And Mom and Dad would go to the games with us, and they're like, "We're doing something. They need to have a place where everybody can go and have enough room." Lo and behold, they sold it to them for the 80 acres for that purpose, and then they sold the back half. And now the city is scratching to find more places to have a place for the kids to play ball. So we tried, I know when I was on the Oshkosh Youth Baseball, when we were just helping out down there, we were trying to get the place on 26 and right down by the place where the tech school is working right now with this other fence, trying to buy that place up. And that never came through. But
we do appreciate those comments, but we have to have it related to
Yep.
that particular project.
I'm sorry I'm rambling on a little bit, but I tell you, I'm just trying to help you out with the amount of water that is coming through our yard and it's coming from that east side of Clairville Road. To me, that is more of a concern right there. That right there is where everything comes in and floods out everything below. It's coming across there, the majority of it is, from when they leveled off the industrial park. And then also when they added all that dirt in there from the James Road project. I'm getting killed with all this water. It's just it's unbelievable. And I have the town out there and the city, and I don't have. This is where I'm thinking. Fix this part
Okay.
sooner than you do this. I mean, this needs to be in like an immediate. We can't. I have a wall I built up, and I got pictures to keep the water away from still destroying my holding tanks.
Sure.
Tom, can I ask a clarifying question? If this-
Well, I just want to make sure that he is finished.
Yep, I'm fine.
Well, it's-
finished.
I want to ask him the question.
Sure. So, and I do believe there'll be several questions that will be asked. But I just want to, before we ask the question, just ask, is there anybody else from the public that wants to speak at this time?
I would like to.
Okay, can you, you'll be called back for a question, but I want to make sure everybody has a chance to
Yep,
speak.
no problem. Thanks.
Thank you. And please remember to state your name and address. Thank you.
My name is Kay Spanbauer. I live at 8370 Tritt Road, Omro, and I'm the landowner where the trees are on this property. And I'm going to make this very brief. I'm hoping the retention pond goes in because it can be solving my son's water issue if they would design some kind of a deep ditch that would run east and west along that and emptying into the new retention area. And I'm thinking that would solve the water issues, so thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments the public would like to make at this time? Okay, we have, someone will, you can't speak again, but somebody will probably ask you a question. Plan commission and/or staff, is there anybody that would like to have a question? Mark, do you have a question?
I don't know if Justin has anything he wants to.
I'll kind of do my best. I don't obviously have the history of living there like you guys do. And I was not very involved with the initial plan development of Southwest Industrial Park here to the east. But I do know that all of the right-of-ways and sites drain to public infrastructure in the streets and then the 3 ponds that are around the Southwest Industrial Park. So basically to manage the stormwater for future development in the Southwest Industrial Park for both quantity and quality, as Mr. Code would require that for any development on private property. So the specifics of all the water coming from Southwest Industrial Park across Clearville on this side, I don't have the drainage areas, but per code that would not be allowed. I do know, again, the 3 ponds do discharge elsewhere, but I know there is water from some wetlands that are in the tree area right in the middle of Southwest Industrial Park that do drain to the east and then out across Clearville Road. As far as kind of the project development site, I don't know, if, Jeff, if you want to bring back up the kind of the air photo zoomed in there. So the ditch that you're talking about, kind of on the south side or the north side of the Clark Hill 40, you can kind of, I know exactly what you're talking about. The intention of the digging of the pond here will be actually to fill the north 40 of Clark Hill Farms. So exactly what that looks like, again, we don't have any plans developed, so I can't give exact figures, but the intention would be also to be able to direct this water to the pond to be able to assist for development of this Clark Hill Farm in the future. So I can't say this project's going to be able to 100% alleviate the problem of the water draining up through that area, but it's noted, and we will see what we can do to help push the water into the pond rather than through the neighboring properties to the north as well as the Clairville Road ditches.
Thank you. Ms. Davy.
I just wondered where you were referencing the Hill Farm.
It's right
So
at
take,
the bottom of the screen in the yellow.
Okay, thank you.
So right, like to where the cursor is right there, it's going back and forth, but you can see the ditch that's right in line with our backyards.
They changed,
okay,
put all the fill from the other retention pond in there. They changed the whole.
So-
Thank you.
dynamics of the land.
Mr. Mitchell.
Got a question for Justin. So the neighbors have obviously some valuable insight as to how stormwater is impacting the area. There is a Sawyer Creek or a regional plan for water management presumably, and we have a stormwater board that presumably is involved in reviewing and approving and implementing these plans. Is there an avenue? I want to make sure they have the best resource to be able to provide input and to potentially look at the plan and make suggestions that they are talking about things that are broader than just this lot that may be important, and I don't want it to get lost. So is there an avenue where they can take a look at the plan and then a specific process for providing feedback for changing the plan if appropriate or recommending changes?
Are you talking the Sawyer Creek master plan, or are you talking the project plan for this basin itself?
Broader, the Sawyer Creek.
So the Sawyer Creek Watershed Management Plan was originally developed and approved probably 10, 15 years ago. So that's already been through that process, and we're just implementing the projects that is in that plan.
I'm sure it's been formally done and gone through a really wonderful process, but you can imagine that the environment today, 15 years later, might be a bit different. And if these guys have valuable input that could potentially say, look, this is what the plan says, and this is no longer happening, we should probably take a look at potentially changing that. What I'm asking is there an avenue for that? Is there a place where they can take a look at that plan, and is there a process where they can provide feedback and potentially provide great input that leads to a positive change for what we're
Sure.
doing?
So that master plan is on the city's website, under the stormwater information page. So certainly they can look at that, and if they got questions, engineering division will certainly try to work with those individuals and that plan. And then, as you indicated, the Stormwater Utility Appeals Board, they do meet the third Thursdays of every month at 7:30 in the morning, right here in this room. So that will be another avenue to come and voice those concerns. But again, I've talked to the resident, I believe it's in the middle of the 3 parcels earlier today. He had called me, I think JP, does that sound right? So I did talk to him earlier today. He kind of voiced some of the same concerns that the citizens are voicing now. And again, I can't specifically say we're going to solve all the problems, but I do anticipate the development of this pond, Rural 2 is what we're calling it, to regrade and help mitigate some of the flooding concerns that is happening to the property just south of them.
All right. Mr. Kiefer.
I also serve on the chairperson for the Stormwater Utility Committee and have been for 20 years almost now. Yes, we review all of the different stormwater basins in the city, and there's plans for multiple things going on, not just Sawyer Creek. And there's been many things that have happened within the city, the Sawyer Creek dredging being one of the big things, James Road Pond, many other smaller ponds throughout the basin that have helped with the flooding. As a result of a lot of that and some of the future plans, the FEMA maps recently, I believe they're undergoing changing. People's that are land that have been in floodplains that has changed, and they're no longer in floodplain areas, and their insurance and stuff have been adjusted because of that. So there's a lot of things happening with the Sawyer Creek watershed, and we know there's more things happening. I mean, we've got basins throughout the city. There's, help me out, I don't even remember the number, but literally 80, 100 various basins,
Watersheds, I think 120 rings a bell.
Throughout the city, some small, obviously, the Sawyer Creek being one of the largest. We do a lot of work on all those different basins and how we're gonna capture stormwater and move it into the proper locations and get it out of people's backyards. I think in a lot of the detention basins that we've done, we do things with whether it's a pond in the city or wherever it might be. We do direct the water there through storm sewers. Is a place to collect the water and to drain it properly and let it drain slower and keep it out of businesses and homes' backyards. So I think whatever would happen with this, and as Justin has stated, we haven't really have detailed plans yet, but I think anything that we would do, we would try to mitigate any flooding in the area as best we can with these ponds. So, but yeah, I think we look at that all the time, and we are looking for new members of the Stormwater Utility Board. I'll put that pitch in there. We're down 2 members. Anyone that lives in the city is welcome to join our committee. We are a fun group, and we meet once a month for an hour, or maybe hour and a half if we get a lot of people.
Thank you, Mr. Kiefer. Councilmember Ford.
May I ask someone a follow-up question?
Yes, you may.
Do you mind? I'd like to know what your question is. That's my follow-up question too.
All right.
Do you mind coming up here just so they
Sure.
can hear you online?
Now, you see that blob? It's a dark blue dot. Now, right there is a hill. That is 30, almost 40 feet above the creek grade. Now, where is all this dirt gonna go? Because when they bought the hill farm, they took all the dirt from the other retention pond and dumped it there. And that's causing all kinds of problems. Now, what are you gonna do with all that dirt? Plus, they hit bedrock at 23 feet, was it, Tyler?
27. I talked to the guys that
27
or
feet.
did the drilling for it.
So, what is gonna happen to all that? Does the city sell that? Where are they gonna haul the dirt, is my question. Because that is a huge hill. And to get rid of that, you're talking many dump truck loads of fill. And everywhere around there is full now. You're trying to dig out stuff. Where is all this fill gonna go?
Well, thank you. I mean,
Question I had.
I'll venture a guess in saying that it would be counterproductive to leave the fill there. And so,
No, you
Right.
can't leave it there.
exactly, so,
But they've dumped it, causing a problem on the hill farm.
so thank you. I have one additional question as well. I would appreciate a final statement from you, yes.
I guess, like Rick said, where's the dirt gonna go? That's, I guess, a main concern. I know if you guys get Kay's property and you go out that way, you can obviously truck it that way. I would imagine you guys were maybe thinking of going down Clairville. I recently talked to the guy, it might have been you, like 2 years ago, who asked permission for the people that did the bore drilling, and I let them go through my property. And they kind of left it a mess. I wasn't real happy. Tried calling someone from the city, never heard anything back. After I allowed them to go permission, not the city, but whoever you guys hired to go do the drilling. And like Rick said, they did the guy told me they hit bedrock like 27 or 28 feet down. And I believe, what do you want to go, 2,000 feet deep, I believe? That's what it says on the paperwork.
Anyway,
I guess I just don't want, if you do go in that small stretch of the property there, that would be Kay's, that little finger that goes back to Clairville, and how long is this project gonna last, and how long am I gonna have to deal with dump trucks driving right next to my driveway for a year? It's gonna have to be over a year. I mean, there's no way that you could haul that much fill that fast. So
Okay.
I guess that's my concern, so.
well, thank you for your concerns.
If I can interrupt here, I found where you mentioned the 2,000 feet deep, that was the approximate dimensions of the property, not the depth of the pond. It's approximately 1,300 feet wide from here to here, and then from here to here, it's approximately 2,000 feet, so definitely not the depth.
All right, thank you. Are there any additional questions by Plan Commission members before I close the public comment period? Are there any additional individuals from the public that would like to speak? Okay, so we would, at this time, ask for a closing statement from the applicant, but I believe the applicant has answered a lot of their questions, so, Commission, it's up to you for action.
Motion to adopt the findings and recommendation as stated in the staff report.
Second.
Okay, motion by, Member Prop and seconded by Kiefer. Plan Commissioners, any discussion on the motion? Mr. Ford, or Councilmember Ford.
Yeah, I'll just say real quick, thank you to the members of the public who came here to share their concerns. Hopefully that's valuable information that the city can use. And hopefully a big project like this is an opportunity to mitigate as many of these issues as possible. So thank you for bringing that up, and I hope that city staff can stay in touch with the residents so that we can make the most of this project and solve those issues.
Thank you. Ms. Shireman, did you have a comment?
Yes, I did. I'm curious, what other options are there? I mean,
I'm gonna defer that.
yeah,
to
I
the
figure.
stormwater
See,
folks.
what are the,
Nothing.
it's very simple. What are the other options here?
That's a loaded question, and they say that because we're dealing with the county and flood storage districts as we have for, I think, this 3-4 years, something like that. So the county is asking kind of some of the similar questions on that end of it. There's specifically for the storage volume that this is going to get is in the neighborhood of 300 acre feet in the 100-year storm event. James Road, if you've ever been out there, you can even see it on a map, very large in its own right, only has about 190 acre feet of storage. So we are not quite doubling the size of that. So to get that amount of storage, other than through things like floodplain or flood storage districts, I should say, it's hard to come by in this watershed. So,
What's the normal size of a in-city kind of, in comparison to James Road? Just give them an idea of how big James Road is. If you have to
we're
go down-
talking in orders of magnitudes of hundreds. I mean, 25, 30, maybe 50, 60 storage feet, volume for storage.
So there's no other options? That's what I'm wondering. Or are there any other options? It doesn't feel ideal, but I'm not an expert in this, but it feels,
There's always other options, certainly. As far as land, and this location primarily is a ideal location, as it does pick up two very large branches of Sawyer Creek. The James Road only picks up one of the branches, so this would get the James Road branch as well as an additional branch. So to be able to make a meaningful impact, you also have to have a hydraulic grade line between the creek where it enters into the basin as well as its discharge. So to be able to get that amount of storage, it can be difficult to find in this area. So to get this type of volume for a pond project is difficult other than this location. Again, there are things that can be done. There are other locations that were looked at, but a little less desirable as far as they were potential prime for future development of commercial along kind of the 20th corridor rather than kind of set back off behind properties closer to the creek. So there's always options, but this is, as a part, through the study, this was one of the better options to be able to get the amount of storage we're going to get out of it.
Thank you. Mr. Kiefer?
I just want to say that, there are other things that we want to look at in the West Haven, where Sawyer Creek enters in and borders along West Haven. I think that's definitely something that we need to look at as far as dredging and things we can do to make the water flow through there. I drive by there every day and see the water back up in almost any storm event. I see the water backing up. It hurts my golfing sometimes, so I can't play the back nine. But I think it is a serious issue that I think, as far as the good dredging work that we did further down on Sawyer Creek, over by Red Arrow Park in that area, hopefully we can continue that in some of those other areas along Sawyer Creek to enhance the flow of the water and maybe even create some additional storm pond issues around West Haven Golf Course without doing anything to the golf course, but making sure we could build that in, maybe forming a partnership with them or something to do something there. But I think there's something of this magnitude, and that's why I asked, how ponds, James Road's huge. I remember we visited that and we literally took a car to drive around the thing. It was so big, or city vehicle. Comparison to that to other ponds we have in the city, and then look at what we're looking at here and starting to plan for. It's almost twice as big, not quite twice as big, but it's huge, and it'll absorb a lot of the water and a lot of the drainage before it really gets further into the city. So,
Justin,
Thank
is
you.
this meant to be a wet pond or a dry pond?
This is meant to be a dry pond like James Road. So it'll be, again, as I stated, dry majority of the year. During a rain event, typically greater than the 2-year storm event, it will start taking on water. And then again, the max capacity is when we hit the 100-year storm event.
and we'll still have I don't know, you mentioned something about your kids playing. There's always a safety shelf around the pond, as well as vegetation that we put in place to hopefully mitigate kids going into the ponds or falling in or anything like that. So I don't think this would be any different.
The one difference between the safety shelf is, and again, without having plans developed, I don't think there's plans specifically for a safety shelf on this one, outside of maybe a little bit of a wet pool we're having on the southwest side for quality purposes. Because it's going to plan to be normally a dry pond, there wouldn't necessarily be that safety shelf around the entire thing.
Okay, are you done? Is there any other questions or comments from the Plan Commission on the motion? I have one comment in that, remember, Plan Commission, this is a recommendation that goes to the city council, so just keep that in mind as you're considering this. Any other comments on the motion? Okay, seeing none, let's have a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Kiefer?
Aye.
Mr. Marshall?
Aye.
Ms. Prop?
Aye.
Ms. Shireman?
Aye.
Mr. Bowen?
Aye.
Ms. Davy?
Aye.
Councilmember Ford?
Aye.
Vice Chair Mitchell?
Aye.
Chairperson Perry?
Aye.
Motion carried 9-0.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 3, final plat for the creation of a 15-lot, single-family residential subdivision at the north 3300 block of West 9th Avenue. It's Pickard Estates, Phase 2, K&P Development LLC owner and applicant. Plan Commission, were there any site inspections of this property? Ms. Prop? Seeing none other, I will accept the staff report as part of the record. Staff, please present your summary.
Thank you. The applicant's requesting approval of a final plat consisting of 15 single-family lots, generally located on the north side of West 9th Avenue, east of Clairville Road. This subdivision is known as Pickard Estates Phase 2. On the screen is a land use map showing the subject site. Oop, wrong mouse. There it is. Oh, just had it. What the heck? There, okay. Anyways, this outlined area is the Pickard Estates plat, which the preliminary plat was approved in April of 2018, shortly followed by the first phase of Pickard Estates. Go to the next plat here. Here we go. The first phase of Pickard Estates, which is pretty much identified with the yellow lots, that was approved in late 2018 and has since experienced single-family development. Proposed Phase 2 of Pickard Estates is located on the north side of the preliminary plat, with the continuation of Paul's Place running around a curve and heading east-west until the plat's proposed termination. This is the plat for Pickard Estates Phase 2. Again, I mentioned it's going to create 15 single-family lots. The property is zoned SR5, single-family residential 5. Just 1 second here, I'm sorry. There we go. The proposed lots range in size from 10,887 square feet, or just over a quarter acre, to 26,206 square feet. All the lots meet the minimum SR5 zoning code, or code requirements in regard to width, depth, and area. The proposed subdivision encompasses 7.05 acres in area. The density equates to a density of 2.1 units per acre, or approximately 1 unit per 20,473 square feet. Generally, it's a low density, but does not exceed the SR5 density requirements, which tops out 5 units per acre. The plat's right-of-way shows an extension of Paul's Place, which transitions to a new street named called Joe's Place once it starts heading east-west. The addressing system, if you're familiar with Oshkosh's addressing, there's a north-south addressing system and an east-west addressing system. During a review by the Oshkosh Fire Department, they raised some concerns that due to the broad general sweeping curve of Paul's Place into Joe's Place, the public and fire and rescue may have some confusion on where one street actually ends and where the other begins. So staff took a look at this, and based on the fire department's concern, staff is recommending that Paul's Place be continued all the way through to the western terminus of the subdivision, therefore removing Joe's Place. And the north-south addressing system that the city has would just continue through this section. This is a preliminary plat that was submitted in early 2018, and again showing the Phase 2 portion. On the west side, the Paul's Place, or Joe's Place, does turn and head south, but with this being a much tighter, almost a 90-degree turn, there wasn't as much concern. So If approved, Paul's Place would transition to what's being called Jason's Place and heading down to West 9th Avenue. There was discussion about just calling the entire U-shape Paul's Place, but generally it's not a good idea having two street names, or it would result in having two Paul's Place intersections intersecting with West 9th Avenue, so that's another way, or that could also cause additional confusion, so we're recommending that Jason's Place remain until, or when future phases are developed. The city police and fire departments have reviewed the final plat and do not have any concerns with providing services to the area, other than the concerns of renaming or extending Paul's Place and removing Joe's Place. As far as engineering and stormwater, the stormwater and engineering civil plans have been submitted and are currently under review by the Department of Public Works. City staff is working with the applicant to prepare a developer's agreement with the city for construction and utilities and street construction. The agreement is nearing completion and must be finalized prior to being approved by the Common Council. Grading and drainage plans have been submitted and are currently being reviewed. And again, all plans will be required to be finalized and approved before final plat approval by the Common Council. Parkland dedication. Parkland was dedicated in phase 1. The dedication equated, or requirement, the overall plat has 60 lots total, with a 1,100 square foot land dedication requirement per lot, which equates to 66,000 square feet. That was dedicated to the city with Outlot 1, which is right down here. I ignore that farm building, that's been since removed. The outlot was sized exactly at 66,000 square feet, so the parkland dedication has been taken care of. Street tree and lighting plan has been submitted. The terrace tree plan shows that there's going to be a total of 31 trees, including 11 autumn blaze maples, Ted Redmond lindens, and 10 skyline honey locusts. This far exceeds what's required by the subdivision requirements. The subdivision regulations only require 1 tree per lot, and with there only being 15 trees planned for this development, they're over doubling the amount required. I think that is it. So yeah, with that, staff is recommending approval of the 15-lot Pickard Estates Phase 2 development with 5 conditions. The first being that Paul's Place, instead of ending at the midway point of the large curve, continue on to the west of the development and removing the Joe's Place street name. And developer's agreement be prepared prior to Common Council approval, as well as all grading, drainage, and civil plans be approved, and street lighting plan approved by the electrical division.
All right, thank you. Plan Commission, are there any technical questions to the staff? Mr. Mitchell.
That one, is that park, then the park space, does that then become a public park?
Yes, it has been dedicated to the city already for phase 1.
Awesome.
All right, any other technical questions to the staff? All right, having seen none, this is also a public comment agenda item, and so I will open the public comment period and request a statement from the applicant if they are here. Is the applicant here?
I don't believe Kevin's here, but I'm Ben with Excel Engineering.
All right, if you could state that at your name and your address at the podium, please. Thank you.
I'm Ben Warnchus with Excel Engineering out of Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. Really just here for any questions.
All right, thank you. Any other individuals from the public wishing to comment on this agenda item? Yes, again, come to the podium and state your name and address, please.
Yeah, my name is Sean Christian. My wife and I live at 601 Paul's Place. We're just curious, is the retention pond going to be increased before phase 2 starts? The size of it?
That would be kind of concurrently with phase two. So they'd be digging the pond deeper and expanding it, pretty much building out the entire pond with phase two.
Okay. Because we asked because there's quite a bit of water sitting out behind, like on the north side of
Within the
phase two.
wetland?
Yeah, and we're just, concerned that,
Thank you.
where's that gonna go? Sorry.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from the public? Any other members of the public wishing to make a comment on this agenda item? Okay, having seen none, I will close the public comment period, but I will ask for a closing statement from the applicant. I'm not entirely sure you want to make one, or do you want to address the question in further detail?
I guess,
You just would have to do that. at this-
yeah, I guess the pond will be, I have to go there. The pond will be expanded in phase two. Stormwater management's fully accounted for with the phase two construction. The pond discharge currently goes up to the north, kind of up to the northeast, and that's going to be shifting. The pond discharge is going to be shifting to the northwest, which maybe could alleviate a little bit of that water up kind of in the northeast corner of the original phase. But yeah, basically the wetland will remain as is to the north. So.
Thank you. Cake, Plan Commission requires, this is time for action. Does anybody have a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt the findings and recommendations as stated in the staff report.
Second.
The motion has been made and a second is there. Plan Commission, is there any discussion on this motion? No discussion? All right, we'll call a vote.
Mr. Kiefer,
Aye.
Mr. Marshall,
Aye.
Ms. Prop,
Aye.
Ms. Shireman,
Aye.
Mr. Bowen,
Aye.
Ms. Davy,
Aye.
Councilmember Ford,
Aye.
Vice Chair Mitchell,
Aye.
Chairperson Perry.
Aye.
Motion carried 9-0.
Okay, item number 4, General Development Plan, Specific Implementation Plan for a Commercial Development at the 2300 block of Witzel Avenue. Glacier Dental is the owner, and Sean Jandry is the applicant. Have there been any site inspections by the Plan Commission? See Kiefer
I mean, not four, sorry.
and Bowen.
Bowen, Prop.
Yeah. I mean,
Right.
a lot of people go bald. It's okay.
Keep looking down.
We're still individuals.
All right, won't comment on shininess. Anyway, the staff, I will accept their staff report as part of the record. Staff, please present your summary.
Thank you. So this is a GDP and SIP request for a new dental clinic. It's a 2-acre vacant lot with frontage on Witzel Avenue, north of Graceland Drive. That is zoned neighborhood mixed use district with a planned development overlay. And the surrounding area is residential uses to the north, south, and east, and commercial uses to the west along Witzel Avenue. Here's an air photo of the site, again currently vacant. The applicant is proposing a 2-story dental clinic with 75 parking stalls. This is a permitted land use in the NMU district. The site will have a single 2-way access from Witzel Avenue to the parking lot. The plan meets setbacks and impervious surface requirements of the NMU district. It is also under the maximum building height for the NMU district, with the exception of the top portion of a stair and elevator bulkhead, which is permitted to exceed per code. The applicant is requesting a BSM for increased parking stalls to 75 spaces, where the code maximum is 69 spaces. The applicant has noted that the additional parking is needed to accommodate patients and staff and to ensure that spaces are available for incoming patients, as the nearest available on-street parking is on Westbrook Drive to the east, with no available on-street parking along Witzel Avenue. And this was reviewed at a Plan Commission workshop on March 15th, and Plan Commission voiced general support for the slight increase in parking. Staff is supportive of the increased parking, as it should prevent overflow of parking onto the neighboring residential street to the east, which is Westbrook Drive. The applicant has provided a dumpster enclosure plan. The dumpster enclosure is going to be the northeast corner of the parking lot, and the material will be consistent with the materials used on the principal structure. Here's the landscape plan. It is meeting building foundation landscaping point requirements, paved area requirements, with the exception of requiring trees to be added or relocated to 5 parking row ends. It is meeting street frontage requirements as well as yard requirements. It is adjoining residential zoning to the north and east, so there's a buffer yard requirement for both of those property lines. So for the north property line, they are providing a 10-foot or minimum 10-foot buffer yard with 4-foot tall wood rail fencing and 38 evergreen tree landscaping points per 100 feet. And then along the east property line, they're providing 6-foot tall solid cedar fencing to meet that buffer yard requirement. The applicant has not provided signage plans. However, they are showing a monument sign that appears to be meeting setbacks along Witzel Avenue. And then the building elevations show a wall sign along the east elevation that appears to be meeting the wall signage allowance for the NMU district, and that will be addressed under a separate building permit for signage. Here's the lighting plan. It is meeting the 0.4 foot candle lighting requirement for all parking areas and not exceeding 0.5 foot candles of light trespass at the property lines, so it is compliant with lighting standards. Here are the elevations. So in the east, south, and west elevations, they are exceeding the 50% requirement for classable materials, which are required on front and side elevations, and they are compliant with the commercial design standards for building elevations. As previously noted, the applicant is requesting the BSM for increased parking, and they are exceeding all landscaping point requirements and resulting in about a total of 117% of the points required, and staff is comfortable with that is offsetting the BSM for the increased parking. So with that, staff recommends approval of the GDP and SIP with the findings in your staff report and the conditions for a BSM to allow 75 parking stalls and the final landscaping plan be approved by the Department of Community Development.
Thank you for your report. Plan Commission, any technical questions for the staff? Councilmember Ford.
So the big ask here is 6 extra parking spots to prevent it from going, people parking on the side road, essentially.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mitchell.
Just a question on the Sawyer Creek border side. I know that they talked about adding some trees and whatnot. There's currently quite a canopy of trees, I believe, that currently just covers it all almost. Does that stay there, or are they completely clearing everything? And
We can check with the applicant. None of their so far, none of the plans we've seen indicate any disruption of that western creek area. They're trying to stay out of it. There's a 100-year floodplain that they're trying to stay out of. But I don't know if anyone from the applicants here that could address it said what we've seen in the plans, it looks like they are trying to avoid that area entirely. On the street side, there is some with the building development that may go out, but that far western property line, it does not appear so.
Any other questions, Plan Commission?
Just one other comment I wanted to make, because we talked about during the workshop, was the building height. As staff was going through our final review, there is an exception within our code for a couple of additional feet of height for elevator bulkheads, which is what was exceeding the height that we talked about previously. So the code automatically actually has a provision to allow that, which is why we did not bring back a base standard modification for it.
Thank you. This is also a public comment period, so I will open the floor to the public. Any members of the public wish to comment on this agenda item? Yes, please come up and state your name and address for our records, please.
Hi, my name is Mary Callan, and I live at 2230B Meadowbrook Court. I am the president of the Meadowbrook Condo Association, so I'm speaking on their behalf. Couple of owners that have questions. As far as, I noticed that there was a retention pond on the drawings, is that correct?
Yeah, there's a biofilter on the western side of the site.
Okay. We were concerned about runoff into Sawyer Creek. As was talked about in agenda item 2, several of our units are along the creek, and when we have heavy rainflow, we can see our creek rise a foot within a few hours. So that was concerning to one of our owners that her unit is on the end facing the creek. The closest building to the site would be a 4-unit, 2-story residential building. It would be address 2250 Meadowbrook Court. And I talked to the upstairs owner today, and their concern was the lighting in the parking lot. That lighting, their master bedroom would face that parking lot. So their concern was that the lighting would be prohibitive to sleeping, I guess, if you want to call it that. So I'm trying to figure out on the diagram where the light poles are. Can you point those out, please? See, in that back one, that very first one, that would probably be the closest to that building. So I'm not quite sure how that's going to impact that unit.
So city code requires all light fixtures in parking lots to be full shielded lighting, means there's a shroud around the light that the light has to be directed down only.
Okay.
Above and beyond that, within, as Brian had mentioned in his report, we have a lighting requirement that you cannot exceed 0.5 candlelight at the property line.
Okay.
That way we're trying to do exactly that, make sure we do not have light trespass coming off of the development onto adjacent property owners. Based on the photometric plan they've provided, they would be under that 0.5 threshold.
Okay, all right. So the other concern, one of the other concerns we had is because right now that lot is vacant and it is much lower than our property, obviously if you put something in there, that's going to be built up. And another concern was that land now is going to be higher than ours, and water is then going to flow our way. Or is it, or because it's pretty much surrounded by parking lot, is the parking lot drainage going to drain it towards the retention pond?
I'll do my best to answer, and if I can't, we'll have Mr. Mitchell come up. City code for stormwater management requires that the developer keep their water on site. There's a number of different mechanisms. Justin's shaking his head back there.
You said Mr. Mitchell.
Or, sorry.
Because you called him the wrong name.
Justin, apparently I'm just struggling with names today.
Yeah.
Hey, you.
Got two Justins, two bald guys.
Mike keep his marshal.
Sorry. City code requires that they maintain their water on site. There's a number of different mechanisms they can use to do that, but it does have to be held on site and then from there discharged into the city's stormwater system. Mr. Gierach, did I state that correctly?
And it could also discharge the waters of the state, so the creek.
So their water can discharge to the creek after meeting city code requirements.
So is that, so would what they're proposing on site, is that normal storm for a normal rain? Is that considered a 50-year storm? Is that considered a 100-year storm?
Now we'll have them come up. We're getting into the specifics.
Sorry about that.
If you have more questions, go ahead and finish.
Either that or John.
No, I think that was it. We were worried about the lighting and mostly the lighting and the drainage.
Thank you.
So to expound a little bit on what Mark said, they also cannot, so they do have to keep their water on site. They cannot stop drainage from draining through a neighboring property. So they will have to try to maintain some sort of a drainage between the properties. Again, they can't just trap water on the neighboring properties. As far as the storm event, so the code would require them as a new development to detain the 100-year post-development to the 10-year pre-development. So basically, it's one of the most stringent in the state. They basically are taking the runoff as a grass field, and then once it's developed, they need to reduce that to what it was as the 10-year as a grass field. So they're reducing the runoff actually into the creek from what it is today in the 100-year event.
All right, thank you. I neglected at the beginning to ask if the applicant was here.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Did you want to make a statement or wait till the end?
I'll wait till the end at this point.
All right, thank you. Are there any other members of the public that wish to speak at this time? Seeing none, you are up for a public comment or a closing statement if you wish to make one.
So I'm Sean Jandrew from McMahon and Associates in Neenah. Everything that's been stated so far is accurate. There's going to be no clearing and grubbing along the west side down by the creek. And as far as stormwater goes, there'll be curb and gutter on the north end of the property that will take it all into that biofilter. So that's all I have.
Thank you. At this time, then, I'll close the public comment period. And Commission, I'm looking for some action on this agenda item.
Make a motion to adopt our findings and recommendations as stated in the staff report.
Okay, Mitchell and Kiefert. We have a motion on the floor. Is there any discussion on it? Seeing none, let's have a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Kiefer,
Aye.
Mr. Marshall,
Aye.
Ms. Prop,
Aye.
Ms. Shireman,
Aye.
Mr. Bowen,
Aye.
Ms. Davy,
Aye.
Councilmember Ford,
Aye.
Vice Chair Mitchell,
Aye.
Chairperson Perry.
Aye.
Motion carried 9-0.
All right, item number 5, public hearing, proposed creation of tax increment financing district number 42, Morgan Crossing Phase 2, designation of boundaries and approval of project plan. Morgan Crossing 2 LLC is the owner and applicant. Has there been any site inspections at that? I see many. Councilmember Ford, Ms. Shireman, Mr. Bowen, Ms. Prop,
Okay.
Ms. Kiefert, Ms. Davy. Okay. Chair, I will accept the staff report as part of the record, and we have a guest staff to present to us the summary, so go ahead.
No, I'm going to present. Based on
Okay.
how well I've spoken so far today, we should be in for a fun one. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So today we're discussing potential creation of TID District 42, including the project boundaries. This is a 1.41 acre TID comprised of formal industrial property. So this is that Marion Road redevelopment area that we have spoken to you many, many times over the last several years. This is one of the final remaining undeveloped parcels of that former industrial area. So we are looking at doing TID 42. Just one note off the start, this did go through a plan development back in May of 2021, so about a year ago, and the developer was approved for a SIP at that time. Since that time and additional discussions have taken place, they have come back with this request. In the TID, the city is looking at making total expenditures of about $2.5 million. Those are identified in the project plans. Those include an estimated $2.25 million as pay-as-you-go development incentives, approximately $122,000 for some public infrastructure projects, and an estimated about $92,000 administrative costs. On touching on that, for the $122,000 of public infrastructure, what is included in the TID plan is roundabouts, cul-de-sacing of Dawes Street, which is currently does not have a I'm struggling today. Cul-de-sac completed, as well as cul-de-sac in Riverway. So that is what that $122,000 is allocated for in the TID plan. Beginning on page 15, there is a list of proposed improvements. On page 24 in your TID plan is where the economic feasibility and a detailed list of estimated projects costs can be found, including any financing. So here's just some of the TID maps that are included in that project plan for you. Just showing land use in the general vicinity of the area. So the development immediately to the west was Morgan Crossing Phase 1. Same developer did that project a number of years ago. Now they're coming back trying to do Phase 2 of the development. Project to the west is a 4-story development. This is proposed as a 5-story development. Again, it was approved as part of that SIP. The city is projecting an improvement value of approximately $10 million will result from the activities in the district, and the applicant is expected to make an investment of about $16 million during construction costs. Other key assumptions are identified on Section 9, which is on page 25 of the TID plan. Again, as I mentioned, Council Resolution 21-239 in May of 21 approved a 5-story, 83-unit building on this site, totaling approximately 118 bedrooms. As part of that, we're looking at about 59 units per acre, so it is a very dense urban multifamily development. Included in that were 97 parking stalls, 57 of which were underground stalls, and 40 were surface spaces. Finally, looking at the municipal revenue obligations for this project, which can be found on Table 3, which is located on page 29 of the project plan. It is anticipated that project costs would pay off by approximately 2034, which would constitute 11 of the statutory 27 years. So this is a relatively short payback period on this TIF, after which time, once that closed, the full $10 million value would return to the tax rolls. This is being done as a blighted area TID, which is, under state law, predominantly open space consisting of land which in buildings or structures have previously been demolished. And again, as this was old industrial area, a lot of those buildings have all since been removed. Looking at the scoring for the project, the city does have a scoring matrix when used for the TID development, and this scored 61 points, exceeding the minimum 50-point requirement for the city. In terms of consistency with plans, this is a urban mixed-use PD planned area, and it was again previously approved by council from the land use side of the development. Kelly, anything to add?
Nope, you did a great job.
All right, Plan Commission, is there any technical questions? Ms. Prop?
Yeah, the other buildings in this area did not have their own TIF, did they?
There was created a TIF district for the merge development. So that's on the 3 parcels here where the Brio building is with the food co-op, where they're working right now on the river, and then just south of the water tower. And then when the Lamico building was purchased for the annex, that also had TIF financing too. And then there was some TIF incentives for along Marion Road, Rivers 1, 2, and then Anthem.
Oh, okay. Based on this blight.
Yeah, the property is contaminated, so the pay-go amount you see for that 2.25, that is going for the remediation of the site and the underground parking, which will also serve as a cap for the remediation.
Oh, okay. All right, that explains it. Thank you.
Any other technical questions by Plan Commission? Okay, seeing none. This is a public hearing, so I will open the public hearing. Are there any members of the public that wish to speak? Any members of the public that wish to speak on this agenda item? Having seen none, I will ask.
We have one.
All right, say your name and address, please.
Logan Youngbacher, 1225 Summit Avenue. I am with the developer on this, so I'm available for any other questions. We are also seeking LEED certification on this building, which I believe will be the first private building to have that outside of the university. And yes, if there's any other questions, I'm available.
All right. Mr. Bowen.
Logan, the SIP from 2021 was May. That's your plan. You're going forward with that plan. No deviations from that plan.
No deviations.
Cool.
Any other questions from the Plan Commission? I'm assuming that that will be also your closing statement?
Yes.
Right.
Thank you.
We'll close the public hearing. Commission, the action is up to you.
Motion to adopt the findings and recommendation as stated in the staff report.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second. Is there any questions or discussion on the motion from the Plan Commission? Mr. Mitchell?
So we've talked previously about incentives or, I don't know, mandates or something to that degree, whatever the word is, regarding inclusion of units that are affordable to maybe families that are at or below 80% of county median income. And part of the idea is that we can't really do that the baseline, like just standard if somebody wants to develop their own lot here, aside from city support. Is it your interpretation that that same restriction applies when we are providing financial support, such as through a TIF district, where we are not able to add any sort of provisions that might move the developer into including any sort of requirement that we're looking for, whether it be affordable units or something comparable?
I can touch on that. That would be entirely up to the council if they would want to include those terms into the development agreement. We have had those discussions and have actually done a, pro forma review where we did include, I think we did like 3 or 4 units that would, serve, LMI folks. It does drastically impact their pro forma, so in turn, typically, we would have to give more TIF support, to make the project still feasible. But that is something that would be entirely up to council to determine if they want to include that term into the development agreement.
Sure, and one other just idea, rather than thinking very piecemeal or isolated boxes, is that, we do have other pots of funding potentially available, whether, maybe it's CDBG funds get paired with this to help offset that cost, because I agree that it may not be fair, appropriate, whatnot, to require this and then make it a financially challenging development. But if there are, packaged tools that we could provide, this would seem to be a great opportunity. It's a wonderful development in a great location that, as is, likely excludes a large portion of the population because they simply can't afford to live there, despite getting city support and taxpayer support.
Is there any other questions or discussion on the motion? Having seen none, it is time for a roll call vote.
Mr. Kiefer?
Aye.
Mr. Marshall?
Aye.
Ms. Prop?
Aye.
Ms. Shireman?
Aye.
Mr. Bowen?
Aye.
Ms. Davy?
Aye.
Councilmember Ford?
Aye.
Vice Chair Mitchell?
Aye.
Chairperson Perry?
Aye.
Motion carried 9-0.
Thank you. Before we get to the adjournment, I have to admit that I blew right past the approval of the March 15th minutes, so I need approval of the minutes for March 15th, Mr. Kiefer.
Second, yeah.
And I think Ms. Shireman, you seconded?
I did.
All right, so we
I'll
just have to
We can do, now that we're back in person, we can do voice.
voice vote. So can I have a vote?
Roll call, or, yeah.
Can I have a vote on, can I have a vote on the approval for the minutes, please?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? All right, and then one final piece of business before we adjourn. The city, in its infinite wisdom, would like to recognize Mr. Kiefer for 5 years of service to the city, and so here is a little memento for you to have there. All right. All right, so having also mentioned Mr. Kiefer's name, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Second, Mr. Marshall, I heard. All those in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we have one workshop tonight.